So we are actually on time, but again, we are going to give a couple of more minutes to the folks who is joining. And we will start in about like 2 or 3 minutes. I think we should start now. So hello and welcome again with the next episode of this Save Thursday. My name is Sekhar Singh and I work with Agilemania. I could see like the many faces is like very mm, familiar. So those who don't know about this program, Save Thursday, it's an Agilemania initiative to provide a platform to the practitioners to learn and share the knowledge. There are a series of webinars, lean coffee tables, virtual meetups we organize where safe experts share their wealth of knowledge and experiences. So today our event's topic is pivot and preserve. Let's explore our assumptions for experiments. So today's our speaker is Anand Pandey. Just a little heads up before we got started. We have, if you have any questions during the presentations, please type them into the questions. And again, we will bring them up after the presentations. And also we will have couple like 10 to 15 minutes time after this presentations. So without any delay, I'll turn this time to Anand Pandey. Like today's our speaker, who is also a very good friend of Preet, and he is Change Agents Agile leader. And today is going to help us to understand UX approach, how UX approach help expose our assumptions early and provides a way to validate these assumptions. In these discussions, also we will um, talk about some of those assumptions to build a hypothesis. So without any delay, further delay, I'll hand over these sessions to Anand. It's over to you, Anand. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Shikhar. Just confirmation if people can see my screen.
Yes.
The 9
yes.
red dots. All right, that's great. So let me start with a very simple game. This is called the 9-dot game, and the ask is very much put very clearly in the below. Join the 9 dots using 4 straight lines only. Use your pen and your pen does not leave the page, and you may not repeat any line. So all you have to basically is join these 9 dots. The game is very familiar, and for those who know the solution, be a sports and let that be with you. And for the others, let's take this opportunity to explore and don't Google it out. You have 3 minutes to do that, and your time starts now. If there's any confusion on the ask, do let me know, and the time is ticking. We have just 1 more minute, and then I'll work on the solution. I was just checking whether the pen works or not. Ignore that line. All right, so let me check who got this as right answer. Now, you must be saying, so the people who were trying to fit all those 4 lines within this box, and you must be thinking that these are the outliers. They don't belong within the box, but you assume that all the lines have to be within the boxes. You assume that you cannot go outside of it. So we make lots of such assumptions throughout our daily life. And yes, assumptions are good as well, because throughout our human evolutions, these assumptions, these heuristics have helped us survive, helped us through millions of generations, right? But assumptions are not just to be identified. Could that first be identified that? Uh, it should also be validated. Unlike, I'm not generalizing it, but in the project management RAID log, the A stands for assumption, and we used to put all our assumptions over there. But that was predominantly to safeguard ourselves. Whenever, if God forbid the project goes bad, then these are the assumptions which we outlined it before itself. But no, assumptions are to be validated as well. And that's why. Let's welcome to the Safe Thursday episode 11, Pivot or Persevere. Let's explore our assumptions for experiment. My name is Anand Pandey. I'm a management consultant, and I have got me as a host, Preet Pandey, a partner consultant in Agilemania. All right, so let's start with entities. We don't exist in isolation. We are surrounded by people. We are surrounded by tangible and intangible entities. And for that, entities like users, entities like problem, there are more. So now let me take an opportunity to invite you all to identify different assumptions that we have. Just wait for a second, please. Yeah, so just can anyone please try and see whether they are able to access that link that I just now shared? Sorry, yeah. So people are able to access that link.
It's opening,
Shekhar,
Anand.
Yeah, so once, I guess some people have already been there. So what the ask is that if people who are online can just use these sticky notes and put up whatever entities you can think of. Users, let me also help with some of those uh, solutions, right? So feel free to add, and it could be duplicate, and it's completely fine. So we have 4 minutes to put down whatever entities we can think around our product management or whatever space you work on.
So basically, with sticky notes, you have to do what,
All right.
Anand?
Let me put it once again. So what
Yeah,
I
please.
highlighted, so we don't exist in isolation. We are surrounded by systems. We are surrounded by tangible, intangible entities. Uh, yeah, people have already started doing that. So people like, and it's not just people, it's anything. So it can be problems, it can be needs, it can be decision makers, solutions, users, customers. We are surrounded by all these things. So before we go on to the assumptions, let's identify those entities and use those sticky notes to put whatever entity comes to your mind. I hope that makes it clear.
Yeah, thanks, Anand.
You're welcome. You have 2 more minutes, and then we'll move ahead.
Anand, it is telling me that you have heavy traffic, you are not able to access that.
Not a problem. As long as you can see the screen and you're participating, that's well enough.
All right, thank you.
I really appreciate someone put development team. Yes, they are very important entity. Influencers, business owners, very well. You may even want to come with intangible entities, admin, HR, tech support, customers, clients, very well. You just have 1 more minute and then we'll move ahead. Great, let's continue for the benefit of time. So yes, most of you have got it, most of the entities. In fact, I might not have covered few of those which you have covered it, but yes, the dimensions are infinite. What I have mentioned is in the example that I'll be taking is the customers, problems, users, solution, feature, developers, competitor, stakeholder. But it's not just that. The entities which help us again evaluate the assumptions are viable, feasible, usable, desirable, legal, ethical, doesn't even stop there. It's sustainable, operatable. So the list goes on and on, right? It's let's not assume that the list is complete. Even that you have to validate. So fine. So right now we have got our entities defined. Now what? Within these are most of our assumptions hidden and we ignore those or overlook those. Assumptions like we assume. So let's start with all the assumption as a belief because that's what is belief. It's not we know. So we believe that our users, we believe that our users have this problem. We generally have a tendency, we jump to the solution thinking, knowing that, yes, we know the user's problem. And this is the solution, this is the feature which is gonna work. And we get into this feature factory, IKEA bias, and we keep on trying to justify that, yes, no, this, users don't understand it. They have this problem, but that is not the case. We have to validate. But before validating, we have to identify the assumptions. So assumption like it is feasible for the developers to build this feature. Might be from the competency, technical competency, timeline, lots of things, right? And I really appreciated someone who put developers because yeah, they are one of the very key stakeholders when we talk about feasibility. uh, we believe that our users will use the feature. And in a sense, it takes from the usability perspective. So with that, again, I invite you for another exercise. Any questions so far? Let me come back over here. And any question on this? Any thoughts? All right. So if there's no question and silence is always a positive, then let me invite you again to the same link, but on a different sheet. If you're seeing the screen, so there's a second sheet where it asks you to come up with the assumptions. I've used the same screenshot with some of the example beliefs so that it can help you. And if there's no further question, then I invite you for next 5 minutes. I'll actually cut it down because we have to complete some more stuffs. So let's take 4 minutes to come up with, use the sticky notes to come up with different assumptions you can think of, might be relevant to your context or even hypothetical. So I'm still not seeing any sticky notes moving. Shall I take the initiative? But I already have. I have got 4 or 5 sticky notes already there. I understand you're trying to move the image, but I guess that's a better place over here. Yes, infrastructure in place. So let's start with, we believe that, because that's very important, the keyword. We believe that the infrastructure will be in place. That's wonderful. So we have one belief there. Who else is contributing to the beliefs and assumptions? Again, let's start with we believe that. We believe that the compliance and regulatory needs will get addressed, which is good. And that is between the stakeholder and the customer, which is very rightly placed as well. And what's the next assumption we see? Yes, Sudha, belief is an assumption which needs to be validated. It's like in Matrix movie, Keanu Reeves was told, right? Don't believe, don't think you are, know you are. There's a difference between thinking or believing or assuming and knowing. So right now we are into the belief state, and we will know about it once as we move ahead. So I'm still seeing only 2 of the sticky notes, but just 30 more seconds and we'll move ahead, assuming that people are still following up and they may have technical limitations like using mobile phone. All right, let's get back. So assumptions, that a few of those which I highlighted, we believe that our users have this problem. We believe that it's for our developers, it's feasible to build the solution. We believe that our users will use this feature. We believe that our customers, so we are basically believing the desirable part of it, right? That our customers will be approaching us for the solution, because there might be lots of providers. We believe that customers will approach us for the solution if it's desirable for them. We believe that, so the stakeholders' belief is that the customers will be paying for it. We believe that the stakeholders believe that the solution is not with the competitor. If you look at that epic hypothesis statement, one of this is that the competitors, what they don't have, what is your USP? So these things might be at the beginning of your work when you have started, but there might be certain beliefs which you have to validate during the project execution or the feature development, or even beyond that. Things like we believe that our users are actually using this feature, which goes along with this. We started believing that they will use it, but even after that, we will have to validate that they're actually using it, the usability part. We believe that while they're using it, it's actually solving the problem for the customers. So this is going along with it, right? So you see, the developers are building the feature the right way. So if you see there are n number of combinations you can identify using this model, and you may just expand, customize it onto what suits you. But it's important really to identify those assumptions. But yes, fine, you have identified those assumptions. What next? The next obvious is to validate those assumptions. Any thoughts so far before we move ahead? If taking silence as no, then yes, now we are going to validate the assumptions. And when we talk about validating the assumptions, the first thing that comes to our mind, especially for those who come from this Lean UX or aware of design thinking and Lean UX, comes the minimum viable product, or as people say, minimum viable prototype. There are various school of thoughts who say minimum viable prototype. And when we say prototype, this is the image that comes to us, right? Henrik Nieberg's, the first image is more around the waterfall. You build the wheels, you build the wheel alignment, you build the chassis, and then you deliver the car. And until then, the customer is unhappy. So that is not a minimum viable prototype. The minimum viable prototype is you give them a skateboard, then you give them the handle to hold it, you give them a cycle, you see the customers, because it's a complex world. You don't really know, even the customers don't know what the real problem is, right? You give them a motorcycle, you see that, yes, it's trying to solve them a problem if their problem was about navigation, going from one destination to the other. And then finally, you deliver them the car because, yeah, you're going on to the right direction, that you're not looking for, just take an example of crossing the river. So should you build them a boat or should you build them a bridge? Unless you prototype that, you might be solving a wrong problem for them. But minimum viable product is not just prototype. It's other ways also you can validate your hypothesis. So these are 5, and it's not again limited to these 5. There are numerous others. But for the benefit of this small discussion, let's go ahead with these 5 ways. Prototype, wizard of Oz, landing page, mining, promotional. And we'll look at each of these, right? So if you have to find out, are there sufficient market opportunity for this? So you may go for so if we believe that our users have this problem, you can quickly go with a mining one. You can create a research poll, might be in LinkedIn, Google, whichever way you prefer, SurveyMonkey, to find out, do users also identify this as a problem? So what you have done is you have actually not built any feature. You have not even built the minimum viable prototype. You have built the mining prototype to still find out validate your assumption. MVPs are not necessarily to market, because otherwise that will be minimum marketable feature, MMF. This is about MVP, just to validate your assumptions. It could be that we want to validate whether users will use this feature. So for that, I can go with a prototype, give them a very small tool and do an A/B test. People without that feature, and with that feature in the same portal, see what's the user's reaction. You can even click a mockable PPT. So you want to see whether this UI will be usable for the customers. Rather than developing it onto the front end, you might, and then posting it somewhere, taking it to the client, you may just pull that into the PPT and show it to the customers. How do they react to that? Because it will be just movable, very easy, right? Rather than engaging the developers to do that. So there are different ways of it. That was about an example of prototype, and we will explore these as we go. Wizard of Oz is the best example that comes to the mind is, let me take a pause. Am I audible to everybody? Because I'm just hearing very vacuum, unless everybody's on mute. Shekhar, am I audible? Clear, loud?
Yes, you are audible.
All right. Thank you, sir. So Wizard of Oz, when we say the best example that comes to my mind, and I'm sure will be coming to yours, is about Zappos. So when Zappos owner thought of selling shoes online, that was the first time, and he was not sure whether people will really buy shoes online. So instead of building the whole inventory, building the whole website, and then getting a shock of his life that nobody actually wants to buy a shoe online, he actually just built a simple page. And that basically he used the promotional prototype, promotional MVP. He built one dummy page and just went to the real brick and mortar shop, took the picture of shoes that he thought would be best sellers, took the photos with the permission of the shop owner, and posted that on his promotional website. And saw, and whenever people requested for that, he would actually go to that physical brick and mortar shop, buy that on the retail shop, no discount, and ship it on his expense to the person. So he validated his assumption that yes, people will buy it. And when we say Wizard of Oz, it also goes with Concierge. In a sense, at the back, it's not automated system. Somebody's manually doing the operation to validate before you even build your whole infrastructure. Gone are the days when you have to build your whole database, your whole server and stuffs, and then start doing it. Take an example of Zappos. It's really very fundamentally strong. Building happiness. I guess that's something book that the founder also wrote. So you don't have to do that. You can validate even without with just a minimal promotional website and doing something at the concierge at the back end. That was Wizard of Oz. Landing page. So landing page, I have got very good example of my own site. So I've got a website called Target Agility, which predominantly I'm using it for promotion of my workshops, which I do. If we go to targetagility.com, you will not find anything. It's nothing about what the website, it's just about 1 or 2 webinars which are going to come. That's what I'm just trying to validate whether people will go to that website itself or not. And by going to that website, people will recollect that name called Target Agility. So I'm using a prototype, an MVP of a landing page. So right, so what we saw was we can use Wizard of Oz the way Zappos was used. We can use a landing page, which there was another company which bankrupted Blockbuster. I don't exactly remember. You can rent your movies. I don't remember. So what they also did was they just built this landing page. You just click over there and you don't see it. It's just that, okay, this feature is going to be live on X and Y and Z date. So basically they are creating that customer awareness and seeing that, okay, whether people will really go over there. Okay, you go to most of these websites which have this PDFs, right? A tutorial. What they say, they ask you for your email ID and your name, and then they say, okay, you will get the PDF free. What they are basically using is a promotional and a landing page. They could have still given you the PDF anyways. They're not charging you, but they are using that PDF as an opportunity, as a bait, if that's not the wrong way to say, to basically get how many customers are interested before they come up with their full-fledged product. Any question on these before we move ahead? Or does it at all make sense? This is just a checkpoint if I'm really speaking nonsense or if it makes any sense. So okay, I'm getting some positive response that it does make sense. Very well. So taking that as a positive note, I'll move ahead. So yes, we have identified so we now know what different kind of MVPs are, but which MVP to use? Let's take an example. So when you're exploring your MVPs, you have to find out basically different questions. What are you trying to learn? You have to really know that question. Who do you need to interact with to learn that? And what are the signals you need to capture to validate your assumption you're learning? And then finally, what's the fastest way for you to find that information? Take a sip of water before I move with this one example, which is live in my case. So I'm still evaluating whether I should go with this D-School design thinking course, which costs more than $3,000-4,000. And I and that will make me a trainer for design thinking. But what am I assuming over here? We believe it's here. I believe that design thinking has a great market in India for a trainer. So I could have very well gone and done this training, and then later on found out that, oh man, there's no opportunity. There's nobody interested in design thinking, or the market is not right now. That's the feasibility part of it. Sorry, the viability part of it. Desirability, yes. I have the craving. Sorry, forget that. Desirability, there is no market for it. The market is either not ready. Viability, do I really have that $4,000 spare to spend it on to B-school training? And whether I see an opportunity, fine, there is a market, but will people come to me? Because I'm not the only lone shark in this wild training ground. So viability, will people come to me? And whether I have $3,000, $4,000 spare to put into this. Desirability, whether there is a market need for it or market is right now for it. And feasibility, do I have the competency as a trainer? Presentation, facilitation skill. Do I have at this age to learn new skills? That's feasibility. So I have to look at all these things. So right now, I'm just taking one of the assumption that there is a desirability for it. I'm not going with the viability of whether I have $3,000 or whether feasibility, whether I'm still capable of learning and whether I have a presentation skills. Fine. So I suppose people are with me till now. On to this and choose MVPs. Let me take a pause. So there was a question and choose MVPs. So Sudha, if you may elaborate that question before we move ahead. Let's focus back here. So this is my assumption. So what am I trying to learn? What is the market opportunity for training in design thinking? This is what I want to learn. I'm very clear on that. And whom do I need to interact? I need to interact with general agile community members to find out, of course, because these would be my prospective customers. What are the main signals you need to validate your assumption? So if I see that there is 10% more participation in any of the events for design thinking. So if I'm doing X events, then how will I know? Okay, if there is 10% more, so if there are 20 people participating on any of my generic events, if there are 22%, then I think that yes, there's an opportunity for design thinking. Now don't question me, how did I come up with this? This is again my assumption. There's an assumption within an assumption, and it might prove wrong. It might happen that 10% more participation do come up, but at the end, nobody turns up for the real training. This is my assumption, right? Now, I have known this now. Now I'm taking it forward. What's the fastest way for me to find this information? So what I'll do is I'll first use mining MVP. I'll conduct a poll for design thinking topics. I'll do random poll to see what's the participation level. But that will just give me a hint. And it's all in my mind. What am I trying to validate? Of course, I'll not reveal it to everybody, but this is something, okay, might be with polling, I'll get some idea. Could be that people will start seeing me as a prospective trainer or someone who knows about design thinking. And I'll also see, okay, who's giving me the vote? It could be one of those might be the prospective customers. I'll try to pull them up for my next event. I'll publish a workshop on Lean UX. Now, this is not the one of my promotional stuffs. They will be separate. Actually, it's not even anything to do with Lean UX. There's some other, but if people see Target Agility and the workshops I do, there are lots of promotional workshops I do. 2 hours. Yesterday only we had this workshop on liberating structure. Coming weekend, it will be on change management and OKR and those things, right? So these are promotional workshops, which I'm doing. But I publish those 2 weeks in advance. But until then, I have not invested my effort on creating those PPTs or preparing for that. I see the participation level. There are many workshops which I publish and I don't see participation. I cancel that. You see, I have not yet till now invested any of my effort onto it. And when I see for those events where there are participation happening, people are subscribing to it. We know that 30% people only turn up or 20% people turn up. But if only 10 people are subscribing, you don't want to do a webinar with only 2 people. Whereas if I see there's a 50 to 60 people are showing an interest, then I'll see that, okay, 10 people might come up, which is good enough. And then I actually create that prototype of 1 to 2 hour of workshop and start doing it. That way, I get a feel that, okay, people, of course, my presentation skills, whether I have a grasp, and these are might be the prospective customers. So with using these three MVPs, I'm able to, and of course not limited to these three, it's just an example for demonstration purpose. I'll get an idea that yes, there are people who are looking for it. There is a market opportunity. And my belief that design thinking is a great market for a trainer holds true. So I may go ahead and put my $3,000-4,000 for that design school, D-School design course. Any questions so far? Yes. The MVP that you have for your releases are more like a minimum marketable features, MMF, which is different for an MVP. So most of your MVPs are actually falling onto Sudha. So Sudha had a question. So your MVPs are predominantly falling onto the prototype. You are just nailing down onto this. You're releasing a feature. What I'm emphasizing are that there are other ways also. Even before you think about your release, how can you find out that yes, there is a market opportunity for it? And this is where your strong product management and lean thinking, lean UX comes into picture, that can we use not just these, there are many more, even before going on to prototype. Because the moment we talk about MVPs, people jump into prototype. Okay, what is the minimum viable prototype that we can build? No, I'm not even going there. I have not yet invested a single hour of my time for conducting this webinar. And I got a insight that no, for this XYZ and course, nobody turned up. So let's not do it. Or might be that's in the wrong market. 6 months back when I did, not even 6, 1 year back when I thought of doing a workshop on ad card change management and other process and other stuff, nobody turned up. There was just 4 sign up for the webinar. Last I did it, it was just 12 people. So I think the market might not still be good enough, right? So I'm not going even into this, this side. I'm just banking on this right now, trying to look at the right market before I invest onto it. Does that make sense? All right, so moving ahead. So after this brainstorming, which takes effort, and if you don't want to invest effort, what the other options you have? You can, of course, nobody's stopping you to cut those blank checks of $1 million and let that go on drain. Nobody's stopping you, or you may be just very, very lucky to hit the bullseye. But for the others and general and mediocre people, I really like going with the MVP way. I just showed you an example of a trainer also using an MVP. It's a life example. So once I have done that, I have to create that experiment. And this is a typical definition. This is not my syntax or of a hypothesis. So we believe that doing this or building this feature or creating this experience, it could be anything, for these people will achieve this outcome, and we will know this is true when we see this. You see somewhere over here hidden is my OKR also. This is my objective. Sorry for my bad handwriting, I'm using a pen. And this is my key result. This is my persona. And this is the experience, the impact that I'm talking about. So if you come to any of my OKR alignment with OKR and impact mapping, we go deep into, not from this point of view. This is through the MVP perspective. That is from the OKR and impact mapping perspective and system thinking diagram. But on a whole, we reach to the same stuff, right? Actually, it's just overlap. They all have to be done together. So taking my experiment, this was my experiment. We believe that conducting a workshop on design thinking for the Agile community will build understanding on increasing market opportunity for training on design thinking. We will know this is true when we see 10% more participation in an event on design thinking. Any questions, any thoughts? Because I'll again invite you to get into your activity. You may unmute yourself and ask any thoughts, share questions, feedback. Looking at the silence, either I'm too smart or I'm too dumb. There can't be a middle ground. There's no question. Yes, Krishna, these are hypotheses. And we have to run these. My hypothesis was around, no. Yeah, hypothesis, you're running this experiment. You'll have to run this whole thing. This is my experiment to complete my hypothesis. My experiment of conducting a workshop on design thinking is my experiment. That small experiment for me to validate my complete hypothesis. And your experiment could have been any of these MVPs. So conducting a workshop was my prototype MVP. I could have asked, just a landing page to see how many subscribers are there. We believe that the number of subscription itself. No. This is my complete hypothesis. Sudha, if people may come on out of unmute and then speak, I'll feel like, okay, I'm talking to people. Otherwise, I'm just feeling like I'm a radio jockey who's just talking alone. Shekhar, possible to unmute everybody so that if you have any question, then you may unmute after a few minutes. Let's have this interactive.
Yeah, all participants are all like unmuted from our end.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yes, Sudha, this is my experiment. I'm just again repeating, this is my experiment for my hypothesis. And I'm sorry if I would have used that word interchangeably with the flow, I might have missed it out, but this is what the intention was.
And using
there is a voice echoing at the background. If you may please be loud.
Okay, what I was telling is, first you write the hypothesis, and to confirm this hypothesis, you want to run experiments. The experiments can be any of those MVP ideas what you mentioned.
Correct. That's right. I might have lost the connection. Am I still audible?
Yes, you are audible.
All right, now it's clear. All right, so I invite you to this small exercise where you may go to the same Jamboard onto the third sheet this time, and you may come up with some experiment of some assumption of yours, some hypothesis, and you may just try to come up with an experiment that you would like to run. This is just to see that, yes, you have understood, and because when you're writing, you might have some questions or some thoughts which we can discuss among ourselves. Is the ask clear? Or? This is the time to just show that, yes, you have been listening to me, or that whatever I said made sense. Or let's take this as also as an opportunity to just discuss a few of the points. Somebody mentioned, but we are already coming with a solution. No, this is your hypothesis. This is the experiment. You never know that will be working or not. So you may just discard that as a low fidelity prototype and you may just throw it off. Are those the questions which are coming over there in a sticky note?
Yeah, I put those questions on the.
Oh, so that's the question you're saying. Yes, of course. If you may want to, so your assumption was the user has this problem. You want to validate that. How would you go ahead doing it? What experiment will you create? And which type of an MVP would you use? So you may want to go with the questions onto the left side, right side. What are you trying to learn? You're trying to learn that this user group has this pain point. Whom would you like to interact with to learn that particular user group? What are the signals you need to validate your assumptions? I don't know what your context could be. That might be the users acknowledge that, yes, they have this problem. And what's the fastest way for you to find out this information? You might just do the polling itself, or you might do an A/B testing, so depending on, so the way we went through different type of MVPs, you may decide which MVP might be appropriate for you to find out the particular user group has this problem. You may even start with a low fidelity mining itself. So Jude, you have a question of how to differentiate between design thinking and lean UX. Sorry, there's actually a lot of overlap. So rather than differentiating, I see that as two complementing tools or practices which help us to find out the customer's solution with the least investment of time. Good that you didn't even put design sprint into it, because that would have just added to the more complexity.
Thanks.
All right, so I suppose there was that much of an engagement, and I understand it's too much to digest in such a short time. That could be one reason. Second reason, people are onto their mobile devices and it might not be possible. But for the benefit of doubt, let's continue with it. Now, because there's so less participation, I'll just skip this one also, because I wanted to check with people that, okay, what have they explored till now and where are they going to use it out? That's all I had, and we still have 10 more minutes spare. Preet, would you like to add anything or take over from here?
Sorry, just can you please go back to this slide?
This one or before it?
Yeah, no, this one.
Okay. Let me, if you found anything wrong, so that I can do the correction. So Preet, over to you, if you would like to add.
Actually, Preet is not here. We are using his credentials, so
not a problem. Not a problem. I just intentionally left that last 10 minutes if he would like to have something. Okay. For the others who are still here, so these are the book and site which I would recommend. Reading Lean UX and Lean Startup, so these are the two stuffs where I was influenced on putting this content. And of course, the best way is to experiment within your circle of influence. And with whomever I would have not got an opportunity to connect, this is my LinkedIn, email ID, WhatsApp, so YouTube. Please feel free to connect with me, and I'll be humbled. And if you may include me into your LinkedIn connection. Shekhar, over to you.
Yes. Okay. Sure. Thank you, Anand. So from here, if anyone have any questions, of course we are happy to and take those questions, because in this time slots, of course, the last 10 minutes we used to take queries from the participants. If anyone having any questions, we are on it.
Thanks, Sudha, for that short and informative. Yes, I tried to make it small and crisp, because the intention of these workshops are just spark. And then whoever is really interested and curious, they'll of course go back and expand their knowledge. And if that spark has been created or which was already there and it ignited it further, I've done my job and I've really respected your investment of time.
So it seems like no one have any query, and Anand has already like cleared all the things, all the slides.
No.
Sure.
Cleared. I have not cleared. It's just that people are very knowledgeable. They understood it, and someone said it's a simple concept. It's a common sense.
Okay.
All right,
So,
Shekhar, if you don't have that.
Yes, we again like thank you all the participants for joining this webinar, and we will. I'm sure we almost like everyone has got some insights from these slides and these presentations, and we are looking forward to like see in the next episode of Safe Thursday, which will be on 3rd of September. So thank you everyone again for making yourself available for this webinar. Thank you. Thank you,
Thanks everybody
Anand.
for spending your time.
Thank you for your time.
Goodbye.